And that one. Hello again. I get to do another one. I get to do Coming Clean. And Coming Clean was originally Coming Queen. Coming Clean was originally Coming Clean and one other story. Douglas Muth and Jiminy Christmas. And it was followed by Day in the Life Sonia Clausen. And in this version of the story, the two stories are connected as opposed to when they were in Transtech magazine when they weren't connected. They're connected here because they had a similar theme, so they were in the same issue. So yeah, that's the only reason they're connected. They were on the same issue. And so I don't have anything extra to add, although we could not find out who Huntsman and Clausen were. We could not find out who Jiminy Christmas was, who was one of the authors of this one. But Douglas Muth is somebody from TF Nation, TF 2005, who is no longer there. So, yeah, this is byline to the story. So, yeah. So we're going to do this. This is his story. So, and we begin with the Seekers. So. Well, I felt that I need to add some making of here just because, real brief, because I made some scene changes that I want to do. There was a scene where he gets invited to Wheeljack's lab and causes a ruckus. Wheeljack's not in the story, so it can't be Wheeljack. He walks around with Trailbreaker and he has a bonded. That's fine. If it's a Combiner Wars Trailbreaker, which I have, but let's do that instead. However, then they jump into talk of baseball, like literally baseball talk. So sometimes you have a story that says Inside Baseball. And they don't mean it, but apparently this guy like wrote it like it's the joke being Inside Baseball. Let's talk about Ty Cobb and Babe Ruth and stuff. Let's talk about Pete Rose and stuff. And then let's talk about, oddly enough, O.J. Simpson, who wasn't a baseball player, he was a football player. And how he, like, the glove didn't fit and all that, because it's the O.J. trial written in the 90s. That doesn't fit at all here, because this is supposed to be 2020. But so that part of the story where it's a rant on celebrities being jerks, like OJ, who was a murderer, but then got acquitted because the jury, yeah, that's another subject entirely, and it doesn't fit there. He did go to jail for something else, but not for murder. But he clearly did it anyway. So, but that is neither here nor there because that's just a celebrity from the 90s, and there's no point in going there because why? So yeah, that's no longer in the script. It doesn't have to be there. So this scene is them commiserating as well, but updated, contemporary, updated, more related to the Decepticons' various tricks and whatnot than it would be to that. Motion on day 2, all right. Silly Kelly, and it's day 2, and end of day 2, and I decided to go just right into it and do the scenes, almost all the Decepticon base scenes in the Douglas Muth part of the 4-part story. Douglas Muth separated it into 8 parts, but the 8 parts are about 60 pages, him and Jiminy Christmas. The second act is another 50, a little less than 50, I think. So together it's a full hour, basically. What we did with day 1 and day 2 is we have mostly the, and I did follow the script because it's good. Except for the one soliloquy that I took out. Another one. This really is a continuation of the last episode. So they're still on Caminus, and it's not a sequel but a follow-up. And yeah, they're still there. They're still looking for energy, so it totally fit. They don't have it of their own volition, so that's the idea. The Jiminy Christmas stuff. I'm assuming that's a pen name, but Muth isn't. The other 2 names, Sonia Clausen and Karen Huntsman, could not find those names because those names are too common. They disappear out of the record. Muth was on the As I mentioned, Mutz was on the TF boards and the TF T-formers, but no longer is. But he wasn't kicked off, he just no longer is. Might be dead, I don't know. If he's still alive, that's cool. He gets a byline. He's still getting a byline anyway. But yeah, this was, I got done with all the Decepticon base stuff and wanted to establish that. I liked the idea of the story starting with the Decepticon base and the Klassen script, which is later, was an example of how to start a Transformer story that could be interesting, or a mystery story for that matter, because that one is that they discovered the body of a Transformer outside of the Autobot base, and there's the hook. So, yeah. I have changed that, though, because in the script, it's October Tone. It shouldn't be. The two names were... I combined the two names when this was edited, when they put this together. I think it was the fuck yous, Ardonna fuck you and Marlowe fuck you. They were two of our Transformer characters that edited it years ago for the magazine. And they made this other character that was actually the Clausen character, the one from the other story, just to continuity-wise. But it should not be October Tone. It should be the guy that was just hurt at the beginning of this story. Then it ties in perfectly. So that's who it is. Yeah. So we've got Sky Stance and Sky Crunch. Sky Stance is the yellow Sunstorm character, and Jet Smash and Sky Crunch is the Carta. They're both Carta. They're Cartas. They're the Tetrajets from Transformers. But yeah, they're Carta. They're Carta names. They weren't originally. And so we have Sky Crunch, Jet Smash. And Jet Smash is the one who should be the one that crawls his way to the Autobot base and is left out there for dead. That would be him. That hasn't happened yet, though. So there's no transition between this guy going to the Autobot base from the Decepticon base. The transition is a page of dialogue where he's flying through the air, and that's it. I thought that by connecting it to the intruder, making the intruder Rakshi, who followed the three of them, makes it interesting and provocative. And that way we don't need to have 50 characters doing different things. Yeah, they changed this. I did change some things. Blitzwing is not the one they confront. It's Rakshi. That makes more sense. Just because, well, Blitzwing's not in the story, and he leaves the story immediately, so it's just not him. It's someone else. It didn't actually fit the bill. Say the Autobot intruder turns around and faces them. That makes more sense. So, yeah. I don't know if there's any more filming tonight, but this was just the recap here. Of the 2 days. Yeah, we decided to do back-to-back, go right into the next one. So that we could go ahead with other ones later on. So I don't know if there's going to be any filming tomorrow, so we decided to do that now, just in case there's a day missing. So we have characters. Yeah, so the guy is Jet Smash that they find. He's not really dead though. He's just sort of maimed. Because yeah, if he's just dead, then that would be like what. Actually, Springer is supposed to be in the story, as well as Sunstreaker and Sideswipe. But they're not on Caminus, so they got to be two other Autobots. That's easy enough to do. There are a bunch of other ones there. And the two other ones. Not Springer, either. He wasn't there, either. So, yeah, it can't be him. It would be weird, because he's not there. We could do like the other episode. He was on Triptychon. No, I'm not going to do that. We want to keep the cast down to a minimum of a dozen or so, and not go any higher than that, just because it's confusing. It's like we don't need 50 people wandering the corridors in the story. This one in particular, I said, well, they have two Constructicons show up, and they had a lot of Stunticons show up, and I have some of the Stunticons. So I thought, how about the Constructicons are the ones they're talking to, and give them a little bit more personality, backstory, because that'd be interesting. And they did. I think it succeeded, giving them some of the same personality traits as the characters he wrote as the Stunticons, but seemed more like Constructicons anyway. So totally worked. Yeah. So and I also get the idea that the Decepticons are technically this autocratic empire, but they wouldn't really work in real life. It would fail, just like the Autobots kind of would too. Um, but yeah, it's fiction. Yeah, they if they were constantly stabbing each other in the back, they'd be like Klingons, who couldn't exist either, really, and they would just destroy each other because they would be constantly wanting to destroy each other. They would be like pirates or something, like evil like barbarian pirate guys, Viking almost, like Klingons, kind of like Klingons, yeah. Yeah, so it just wouldn't work. You can't have your this Decepticon, yeah, yeah. Anyway, so that's so I made them a little less effacing. I made it a little more like they're self-deprecating and then personally attacking each other, but because they're Decepticons, and one of them is treacherous, he must bribe the other one, and that's in the script. Actually, the script is very well done. Or in terms of a Transformers episode, it's very quick-witted. It moves like the comic books. It's probably based on some of the Wrecker stuff from the UK and some of the American stuff from Marvel. There's a lot of Marvel-y, more Marvel, I would say, than UK in it. They were Generation 2, possibly. There's a little bit of Generation 2 in it. There aren't any nods, though. There is a scene where the Dinobots make fun of Beast Wars. That was in the script. I don't know how that would work, though. I don't think that's going to happen in this version. I think they're just going to do something else. I have been trying to avoid putting the Dinobots in it just because they don't really get anything to do in this story or in the other one. They had like a Dinobot scene, and then there was an Draxus. And the Dinobots we have are these little mini sort of, they're smaller Voyager class of Volcanicus guys, and they're smaller than the Sunstorm character. They're literally mini bots. They're small, so they would look really ridiculous. They would not be scary or intimidating or anything. So I figured, we don't really need to have that. Yeah, let's save them for something else. Yeah, just kind of can't do anything with practically mini bots. They're not Voyager class. They're like Legends Deluxe class. They're small. They claimed they were Voyager class, but they're not. They're small. Leader class used to be quite a bit bigger. Leader class is 5-inch. I think these guys are said to be Voyager class. These are current Voyager class, and sometimes called Leader class because they've shrunk them in the box. Anyway, so that's all for tonight. Okay, at the bottom of that screen, that was the end of page 60 and the middle of the story. This is the Douglas Month and Jiminy Christmas section is done. It's done. That part, the other half is still to be done, the other 50 pages, but the Douglas Month and Jiminy Christmas part is done. And at the end of the story, it says that it was off of the, of course, it's a lexicon, so it has 2018 on it, but it was actually, the story is from the 90s, from 96. So 96, 2018, he put a copyright. Even though there's no copyright on Transformer fanfic, you can't do that. It's your own intellectual property, but because you're doing a Transformer story, it isn't. I mean, it's your own idea, but you can't copyright a story about other people's ideas. That's not how Playing in the Sandbox works. Yeah, like I could write a story, it wouldn't be, yeah. So this one is similar to, also this ending was changed to make it more similar to the ending of Till All Are One, the Cal-Cap version with the wrestling. Except instead of them wrestling, they team up to go rescue. They're going to go team up to rescue the guy, which comes into play in the next act. Had to change a few things. 90s references that made no sense, of course, and make it so the Autobot, the Decepticon, was never actually accepted, and that was clear in the story. His version was darker in terms of the ending. They went for having his mind wiped and then having him just like act like himself again, which is the Brazil ending. Interestingly enough, I don't think he actually saw the original Brazil. I think he was just like read about how the other ending went, and he's like, "Oh, this would be messed up if the guy's mind was wiped at the end, like they wanted to do." not knowing that actually, the American version of Brazil, and they do reference some of the elements in here, so that might be what they're thinking of, or they might be thinking of Shutter Island. But I don't think so because that was much later than '96. He's probably thinking of like the earlier version of it. He's probably thinking of Brazil. So, not Shutter Island. That was much later. It was in the 2000s. So I'm guessing he's thinking of Brazil, and the mind wipe scene in Brazil. There was going to be a mind wipe scene. Now in the original British version, the original Terry Gilliam version, it doesn't end with them escaping into the fantasy and going off into the sunset, and then the credits just roll. It seems like they cut something out. They totally did. They cut out the mind wipe scene or the lobotomy scene. Actually, he could also be thinking of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Similar scene in that one, too. Terry Gilliam liked One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Well, I'm going to do a scene like that in there where somebody gets a lobotomy at the end. And they did that in Shutter Island as well. But in Brazil, what happens is he goes into the fantasy, and then the movie continues for another 6 or 7 minutes. And you realize, oh, they cut back to his head, and then he's just lying in their chair comatose, and he's like, eh. And the doctors are like, oh no, we've fried his brain. We can't reach him now. He's in his own mind at the end. And yeah, that was the original ending of Brazil. And if you get the Criterion Collection version, it's that ending. It's that they changed it back. They said, no, the Love Conquers All ending is not the ending. That's ridiculous. Why would the fantasy take over and then he'd be in the fantasy forever? No, in his mind it did, because it made it vegetable at the end. So yeah, so the idea is that he gets lobotomized. I didn't want to do that in this story, at least not in this act. No. Yeah, they have to find the man that's missing, and they have to like find him. Yeah, and also in the original version, he does kill Soundwave, which is ridiculous. Yeah, so this version is slightly different. You could say it's a slightly different universe than Douglas Month's story. Slightly different characters in it, and they're interacting in a different way. So his version somewhere in time and space, his version in the Brazil that I know, somewhere in the universe there's his version, which doesn't have the Love Conquers All ending, which is a dark and twisted ending. This is the Love Conquers All ending, because it's more cynical, messed up, and more 90s to do it this way instead. The other way is too much. It's just too much. So this way is there. But this is not the end of the story. This is just the end of the first half. First two thirds, really, kind of. Well, third and a half, because it's not quite 2/3. And these later ones are like that. They're sort of like halfway through to about 2/3 of the way through. There's another one tacked on the end. It kind of seems like that. Third act's a little weird in all of them. That's because we're using these 3 are multiple author stories. That's why. The last few have been multiple author stories, I think. There's been a couple of them like that. But we try to make all the acts match, so hopefully we did a good job. So yeah, this is the end of tonight's filming. We managed to squeak by and do a little more at night here, and complete the, we were this close, so we completed it. Now it's done, so yeah. There we go. Done for the night. Okay, yeah. Actually, this was sort of we're doing filming right now, so it's not a scene pickup technically. It kind of is, but we're doing it right now, so it technically isn't. Yeah, there was a scene where the Autobot got into the base and out of the base too easily. So we don't know how he got out of the base, but that's okay because we're assuming somebody helped him. By showing the footage where he meets up with Little Grimlock, that establishes, okay, that's probably how he got out. Now I'm establishing the part where, or at least how he got in. I'm establishing how did they were let go, so we don't really need to show how he got out. And I'm not going to. This is them going on after that, right after that. So this scene would be right after they told the Autobots to leave. And he references the other Autobots leaving the planet as well in this version, which makes sense. So that's all I wanted to add to that. Yeah, just to make it a little clearer as to what's going on. Just to also mention a scene edit The Autobots were going to play Twister. I think I mentioned this before when we were going over the whole series. That little nutshell graph thing on the Atomicon convention. And the other thing, mentioning some things that they were doing, Twister included. And said, like, okay, they can't, the toys can't physically do that. And it would look weird. It would just look like they piled up on top of each other. They don't bend like that to do that game. That would just be weird. So it's not going to happen in this version. Apparently, yeah. So it doesn't. Also, yeah. So yeah. Also, the headspace part of Sky Crush had to be in the story. So the part that we said, oh, we're not going to do the mind wipe thing. But there's something like it had to be done. So they drugged him. They probed him and drugged him with something that got the information they needed. So yeah, instead of wiping his brain, they just like drugged him. The Decepticons, because they're jerks. So yeah, that was in relation to Sky Crunch. I don't think they got the information they were looking for though, or at least they're not telling anybody, which is odd. Maybe they think it's funny because they're evil. No. But you see that the Autobots are completely different and that they behave in a different way. The first script had a lot of cussing. The Transformers are cussing a lot. That's probably why this guy got banned off the boards in early 2000s, around 2010s. Then he puts a lot of his Douglas Muth, that is the first author of the first section, the 60 pages, 9 little short stories that he stuck together into a six part thing. It was actually 60 pages and 11 parts, I think. But the 11 parts were like very brief. They were like 2 pages, 3 pages long. So yeah, and in that version it ended with Jet Smash getting his brain washed. I didn't want to do that in this version. Coming clean does not refer to that. Coming clean refers to them coming clean and that they're trying to find their friend that disappeared, and they're going to come clean with that. So, yeah. That expands into the next episode, and that makes sense. So the mini Dinobots have a reason for being there. It isn't just the mini Dinobots. They are in the script. That isn't just a thing. Yeah, and it's very reminiscent of Trans and Trans 2. Not to be confused with Transvestite or anything like that, but Transformer Trans. Yeah, so, yeah, Transformers, toy, yeah. Not the other thing. Well, on occasion, the other thing, but not in this case. Yeah, so this is, I believe, the Sonia Klassen part of the script at this point. Yeah, she's the middle author of the whole thing from page 11. So let's keep going. Well, 11, but 72, roughly. Yeah. This is the fight scene. We skipped all over I skipped the Twister scene. That was stupid. It just was bad. It went on for 4 pages. Fight scene. This is going to be slightly different than the fight scene, but the same sort of quirkiness of it. So let's just start it and not worry about that. We have a slight revision to the ending of this part of the battle. Oh, well, this part does end, and then they're back at the base. So that's what's going on. So this ends, and then to the base. But there's going to be something in here, just a little bit. Okay, this is the finale of the battle. The other scene works with it. Real quickie. Yeah, that scene was reminiscent of a scene from Transtech, in which Blaster fights Soundwave to the death. It's also similar to a scene in the Japanese Transformers show, of which that was a sort of a takeoff of back then. In this version, it's also in the script. In the script, there's a scene where Soundwave and Blaster play loud music at each other. In this script, from this story, which actually is from the 90s, and hours later, did the same thing. So, well, yeah, we probably remembered that from Transtech magazine, but curiously enough, if it was in the first Transtech movie, then we remembered the story from the 90s and put it in the script for Transtech. And so it's Synergy, because the story was later printed in Transtech magazine with a byline, but we couldn't pay anybody, so it was just printed in the magazine. Magazine was free. It's no longer online, the magazine. So, but yeah, that version of this story, I think it was called the Edge of the Void or something like that. Originally, the story that this is loosely based on. So yeah, this is it's very similar. Yeah, that's. So this is the end of the first part of the Clausen script. Day on the Edge and Edge of the Void. Edge of the Void is the last one in this Clausen and Kurtzman script. Klausman and Huntsman script. Edge of the Void's the last one, and that's the one that had the cool hook with Springer and the body that they find. Yeah, so that's going to be the opening telltale of the very next scene. And then we don't really see the front of the base again. But just for this telltale, we'll put that in there. So we have that scene in the can, even though it's getting late. So, yeah, so I'm going to do that. That scene. So, yeah, slightly different. There was no Cup in this version. We left him out because we figured we'd have to introduce him just to have him say a few quips about being Cup and being old. Quipping to Springer and Rodimus, which is fine. But we decided it's just we have Draconis and Rodimus there, so have some of the others say the same lines because they're there. So yeah, we have Smart Alecky sideways, so have him say some of the lines. We didn't need Cup in this. He'll be in other ones, but we didn't need him in this one. We would have thrown it off. Yeah, and then we have the 2 Megatrons, so we have almost 3 Megatrons really. Galvatron. Yeah, so their plan apparently was to take over the base, or to hit the base, and then while they were coming to their place. That was their plan. And they wanted to get in there to get the energy, but Rodimus told them they didn't have it. That's kind of what's going on. But yeah, assuming they'll be back in the last act, page 23 now. Should be the end of this act. And the page 23, but you tack that 23 onto the 60, so it's page 83. So, yeah, so we cut out the playing Twister game. That was silly. And the Dinobots did tie into the ending there. In the original, they were actually the Dinobots, and they were actually full-sized, and they chased them off. But in this version, obviously they couldn't, because you see the scale of these Volcanicus Dinobots are mini Dinobots. So instead of that, they annoyed them into leaving. Because, yeah. But yeah, let's do this next. Whatever day this is. Day 5. Yes, 28th. Okay. Starry night background. Silicali. Yeah. 5th day and final day of filming on essentially part 2 of our Caminus 2-parter. The first part was the Rob Jung story, the series of short stories actually, the story of the last one. What creature rattle was that? Yeah, I'm blanking on that one, but this one was coming clean. Edge of the Void and Day on the Edge. That's what this one was. But no. Yeah, it's all a blur because it's all connected. Now we got to put this together and make a movie out of it. Probably another hour. Yeah, and with the last 20 minutes or so being this weird sort of mysterious killer adventure tied into the story. The one we just literally did. What was that? Yeah. So that was a Rob Jones. This one was done by Clausen and someone Clausen and don't know who that is. And Kirsten Hertzman was the second half. The first half was Jiminy Christmas and Muth, Mr. Muth, of which who was I don't know who Jiminy Christmas or Clausen or the other one are. Douglas Muth I've heard of. He has posted an archive similar to the Calicat one, where he's posted sort of part of Lexicon, some of his older stories. I think that it's just copyrighted 2018, but he hadn't updated it at all. It's just that that's what Lexicon is copyrighted as. Even though it can't be copyrighted as Transformers, trans fans just like to put copyrighted by somebody in case somebody steals it. And it's like no, you can't copyright someone else's material. So no, it's not copyrighted. That would not be in the slightest bit legal. The Hasbro would say, "What? You can't put a copyright trademark on that, or a trademark on that, because it's Transformers. Your fanfic is your intellectual property, but if you use someone else's characters in the setting, it's not. It's a parody, or it's fair use or something, which is fine on YouTube. But yeah, it's not. You can't copyright it. You can't make money from it either, which inevitably a copyright would be for royalties. Byline gives you royalties and that kind of thing. We can't give them royalties. We don't really know who they are. But even if we could, we can't pay them, because then when we pay anybody or make a profit and give a profit, then we get in trouble. So we can't do that. So we're not going to do that. This is sort of the second half, but it's its own story. We decided to just stay there on the planet in the second half. The fight scene at the end is a little bit further than the script went. The script just had them fight the bad guy and dies. This one ties it into the other story, makes it directly a follow-up or a sequel. And yeah, the gun is a jet fighter from Transformers Armada. But yeah. So yeah, basically the deaths get commuted because it was written by a teenager. Pretty obviously written by a teenager. The last part. But yeah, sure. She just wanted like character development. Prime and Rodimus. Unknowingly making it a slash story about Rodimus and Rodimus Prime and Optimus Prime in the Matrix, and kind of making it sound like the Matrix was their heart, and they were like joined to their heart, and kind of like romantic almost. So I went there and had it imply that they could be indeed. Also, we upgraded Sport to the other Dark of the Moon Prime, I think is what he is. Yeah, because the other one, Draconus Prime, is the other one. I don't know how much more there'll be of Sport in the stories, though, because he looks just like Prime. So I don't know if it'll change that, or if this is just fun in this story or not. I don't know. Anyway, so that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the end of filming. Yeah, I don't think we need to do any pickups. I think it's done. There aren't any bloopers. There's 2 lens cap scenes, but that's not really a blooper. Yeah, so... yeah, the making is going to be brief too, because other than it being, Muth's class and script, said that already. They get a byline. They can't get paid. So, yeah. And Lexicon, copyright. Yeah. Can't do that because it's Transformers. They have no legal right to any of the characters. They have their own characters, and for that matter, we did change some of the character names around. Although she does mention in the bylines that the character of Sport, which was changed in this version because it was hers and someone else's, to our character, the Scout Sport, it's a different guy. It was changed. Different dude, because it was their character. Axion was in the previous episode, was actually one of the fan characters. But Axion, as you pointed out in that one, that was a sibling rivalry. That was actually... not their character, but it turns out they were just copying a Transformer character from one of the comics of the lesser known Transformers. It's actually a mail order Transformer, so that's not theirs either. Night Racer was technically BotCon 94 exclusive, but there was an earlier Throttlebot. Smart Cards even do that. There was an earlier Throttlebot. Had a similar name. It was supposed to be Night Racer. Yeah, there was a BotCon exclusive later. I'm assuming they're making another one for Siege, so that'll be cool. That'd be cool. But they kind of already did with the Bumblebee movie, because really the Literally Shatter and the other one are really Backkick and Shatter, Night Racer and Windblade. They basically are. That's basically who they are. But yeah, so yeah, Windblade. Windblade is a fan creation story. One of these people. It wasn't Boline. It should have been, but it wasn't. Somebody else. And as you know, Cal-Cat had something to do with transmetals, and so that's his claim to fame. Some of those. There was a write-in contest, and he submitted a drawing of Transmetal Dinobot. And then it became Transmetal Dinobot. Yeah. So, cool. He didn't get paid. Didn't get any royalties for that. Nope. Anyway, so, yeah. So, yeah, there was a Cheetor, too, that they did as a Transmetal. But he looked kind of weird. That wasn't really his, though. That was more Mark's cards territory. So yeah, so we went around. Yeah, fandoms. Our series continues. It was very hot today. The series continues. It was 100 degrees outside during the day. It was hideous. Anyway, so now that's done. Moving on. Yeah. Transform your adventure. Transform your world. Autobots, transform and roll out. Robots in